I think that we have to separate out behavior and consequence from unconditional love. So loving people unconditionally doesn't mean that there are no consequences for bad behavior. It simply means that we are present to them in a way that allows for transformation, in a way that is faithful to the possibility that God can intervene in the hardest of hearts. I think of a Saul of Tarsus who was committed to the eradication of the church. He was bent on killing Christians. That's a picture of somebody that would be hard to love.
Yeah.
And after Jesus encounters him, or he encounters Jesus, he then goes to the house of Ananias. And you can imagine what this little Jewish man must have felt. He now encounters one who is educated and authoritative and committed to destroying Christians, and he's expected to love him. But again, we can't do that unless the love of God flows through us. This is what I love about the story of Jesus and the Samaritan woman. I love the fact that he's not showing us an example of someone easy to love. He's not showing us the example of loving someone of our same faith or our in-group, of our own tribe. But he's showing us in loving a Samaritan, someone who comes from a different background, someone who has a different cultural identity, someone who is of a different political party, all the hot topics, someone who has a different sexual history, and he has the longest recorded conversation with her in the Gospels. So think about that. We know Jesus had a lot of conversations with a lot of people, but he chooses, and John chooses, to record this for us because this interaction is a model of loving the other. The Samaritans were the other, and the conversation that Jesus has with her begins a love affair that continues his entire ministry. He shares with her around the most provocative topics of the day. Her heart is softened. She isn't repelled. She doesn't reject the message. And from there, she then goes to the villagers and says, come, I want you to meet a man who's told me everything about me. But apparently he told her in such a way that it was kind and compassionate and loving and gracious and winsome. And Jesus then goes with her back to the village with the villagers. So I'll take a breath here. But here's the bookends that I love. We have Jesus sitting at a well, a place of great pain. Jacob's well had a lot of history. A lot of painful brokenness occurred at that well. The longest recorded conversation goes to 2 missing days in Jesus's itinerary. He disappears off the grid into Sychar, and we don't know what happened there. I wonder if he heard the story of the Good Samaritan. I wonder what sort of other stories he might have heard. But what we do know is from this moment on, he is all in with the Samaritan people. Who are the others in our world? Who are the Samaritans in our world?
Yeah.
They're the ones that we're called to love. Even if they are enemies of God, we still owe the debt of love to them based on what God did for us. We were enemies of God by our own sinful nature, and yet God loved us into the kingdom and gives us the wherewithal to love even the hardest to love.